what do we have here? All right.
Oh, we can start with this, I guess.
Yes, this is prehistory of Housemarque. You know, there was two company co-founders, I would say, were in a different company. So I was involved with Terramarque, which got out Elfmania back in 94. So this is over 31 years old now. Then there's a Super Stardust, one version of it, published by T17. Harri Tikkanen was part of that Bloodhouse, and they started doing games at the same time what we did, about a couple years earlier than when Housemarque was founded. And I got involved because to help the guy to help my friend to set up the company, and that's how I got into this. So my friend had done several Commodore 64 games, and he wanted to set up a company. I came to help and co-found the company with him. And this was the one and only game we got out.
Yeah, the next one.
Yeah, this is
not so far from this.
No, actually, it's called the same.
Almost.
Yeah. So Super Stardust was the first game on PC we got out in '96 spring, maybe April, and this is certainly that's when all things got started. First game out, 90% PC gamer review, easiest, the funniest fun scene on the Zap game scene, and of course we'll find out that we never got rid of this. This in the coming years either. But the great start for a fledgling small studio. First game out during the first years of existence.
So Zap game is the appropriate name for the genre, I guess.
Apparently, I think that hasn't stuck.
Yeah. Speaking about genres, this is a depart from that.
It is a departure for sure. There were point-and-click LucasArts game fans in the studio, and they wanted to do point-and-click adventure game, and that's why we got. This is actually the first agreement we got. This is agreement of Alien Incidents got us started, and I remember it was June '95. And we got the agreement, and the agreement was massive, £71,000.
Ooh.
Yes, hundreds of thousands of Finnish marks back then. So that's we got the first money from the signature in, and then things got started, and then we got the deal for Super Stardust, and we have other things that got us funded. So this was kind of the first deal we got back then.
This is the Finnish version.
Yes. Called Muukalaisten Yö. Yeah, there was. We were a bit of a shocked when we saw this artistic interpretation of our things, and we got something added here. I don't know. Maybe there was some ghost movie, very popular at that time, but I don't know. Some publishers, PR agency were doing hard work to spoil this cover as much as possible.
Did you get any feedback on this?
Well, we couldn't. Well, we weren't able to do. If we would have had anything to say about that, we would never have had this cover. But as you can see, this is the same model that they're using here, but it's quite different.
Yeah. I think after this, we went again into shooters.
Yes.
I think. Was that the next one? I think
that is the next one, and this is kind of what we had two games with the company publisher called GameTech, and actually the GameTech then they become a Take Two Europe. Actually, they were bought
at that time.
So this was one of the first Take Two games, I suppose, when they started. So the Reap was an isometric shoot 'em up as well, and we were. Of course, shoot 'em up fans, and there was Neo Geo game called Viewpoint that was big inspiration. Jackson, of course, a little bit of that. So we wanted to do our interpretation of that, and that became the Reap. And of course, at least the cover-wise, it was much better work than the previous game.
I think it's an interesting one because this basically is a start of doing all of the subgenres of shooters.
Yes.
Like,
And this was actually streaming from CD.
Yeah,
That
I know.
That certainly was kind of
Here's the streaming.
Yes. And that actually at the time caused problems with some of the PCs because they couldn't keep up.
This is an ingenious way of level design because the game was actually streaming like this. So.
Yeah, I think maybe it's come from here. I think a ship doesn't look like a ship here.
No, that's the boss.
Oh, that's a boss fight. Okay, yeah. Okay.
So starting from here.
Starting from there.
Yeah. It was. I think it was rendered like screen by screen and then stitched together. So
it was kind of streaming from the CD all the time. Yeah. This is April '97, apparently.
Accurate technical description of how the game
This
works.
is the game design. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's really awesome.
And then
of course, that's a big departure. We change publisher.
Yeah.
And actually, this is interesting thing that one day in downtown Helsinki, a small French guy rang the bell and came to the office.
Right.
And he was from Infogrames.
Yeah.
And I guess we had been pitching the snowboarding games to them as well, among other publishers.
Yeah.
And I think they had some deal with some telecom here, some project, and he came to check us out. Yeah. And eventually, I think a few months later, we flew into Lyon to the Infogames headquarters and negotiated about a deal in early '99. And then we actually, this is pretty funny. I think this game was released late '99, so less than a year after making a deal, we had a game out, and this was basically one of the biggest success at the time in Finnish games, and few 100,000 copies as this one as main box. There was kind of a budget version, and then got a lot more. Oh. And the most we are most proud of course. We were featured in the Danish cornflakes package. So
what's up with that?
So the new thing back then was the OEMs. You bundle these games with, let's say, graphics cards. I think we were in the Sony CD package, like 10 CDs, and you have a game. And of course, this is the
obvious
peak culmination of these business efforts. So of course we didn't have much to do with the deals. So that was kind of a part of the business, that you kind of extend the life cycle of the game and keep on doing that. So I think distribution was pretty big. You know.
About the extension of life cycle of the game, I seem to remember that this game was used for physical rehabilitation. At some point.
Yeah. There was, I think, in Sweden, in some made some adjustments that people with the limited capability to move, was kind of snowboarding just using their head movements. There was something like that, the rehabilitation or something like that. I think in Sweden, I remember, but I can't recall the details. But there was something like that apparently, brought joy to these people and going down the hill without that actually happening. So that's very cool.
Would have been nice to see. About the schedule of this game, by the way, you mentioned that it was basically ready at the end of the same year that it was signed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because this is the first 3D game and also a first 3D accelerated game even. So that's a big leap from these.
Yeah, sure. First 3D game which we did, and we had a kind of a great demo. Of course, we had some things going on with this game already at the time, and then we had a big demos, and I think we had a pretty impressive demo a year earlier at the GDC, and that's how we got it started with the discussions and so on. So we got that, and actually this is very greatly featured in Intel 586 processor demo day, for instance. I think in early '99. So that was kind of a. So we had been working on that. So for quite some time. But yeah, to think of it like, oh shit, we did manage to get it out quite soon after signing the deal. So Jarno, you've been with Housemarque since very early days.
Yes, since this one.
Yes.
Actually. I came in late for this one.
Yeah, but I think the most proudest moment that you have been like 10 years later or so. You were kind of a mastermind to creating Karaoke games that, it was kind of at some point you may not always be able to do what you kind of sell these bigger games or whatever. And we did quite a few of these, like, let's say, advertising games or smaller projects here in Finland. And this was kind of the big thing, Karaoke games.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. Yeah, I think I actually updated it for like 6 or 7 years in a row.
Yes.
This was the first one. And then there was, after Super, there was Ultra, Mega, Giga, and so on, Every year we made a new one.
Yeah, this is a fun memory for me pitching a game because we were doing a PlayStation version before SingStar actually. I was pitching that, and I think I've created some maybe painful memories to many of the industry people by singing Kyle Minogue's "Na Na Na" while pitching the game, while kind of playing this. So people always remember me from that. Like I'll start like na 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 na. So they was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I wrote the singing detection algorithm for that as well as the game, and the people at the office didn't really appreciate me testing it that much. I got some feedback on that.
Okay, well, we didn't stop making snowboarding games here.
Oh, by the way,
yes.
Before we go on from this, do you remember any of the reasons for actually moving to a snowboarding game from the Reap?
Well, there were snowboarders in the team at the time, and I think extreme sports were kind of coming up at this point. And I think it's really started when Tony Hawk's skateboarding in '99.
Right.
Well, we were actually quite early there, right? So it could be, there was snowboarding expertise in the house and some avid snowboarders as well. So I guess that was one thing that, hey, we can do a lot with this. And that's how this got started.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you weren't at our first Christmas party. We had this one big room where we had our first office in south part of Helsinki, and PlayStation, the first one, had come out in Europe as well.
Yep.
So we bought that for the Christmas party, and as nerds as we are, we just enjoy the beverages and look at the Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
7 and played that and wondered like, oh my God, this is beyond what you can do. But obviously it was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was quite interesting memory that I think not that many people have spent their Christmas party playing Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I remember quite a few of the early parties were actually like LAN parties.
Yes.
So to speak. Oh, yeah, and the LAN was, it was really old tech, and I think even internet that we had was at first behind a modem,
Yes. I think luckily we got maybe the second year we got kind of some sort of a.
Yeah.
But we had a LAN parties. That wasn't that kind of usual to have good LAN. I remember some Quake sessions, for instance. So we had a lot of kind of small LAN parties there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a small room where we all worked at the same time, like a single room, I think.
Yeah, I think something like 90 square meters or something like that.
Yeah, and there was music all the time. There was the CD player.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, it has like five
discs. Yeah.
But remember what Harry was playing there? Kind of there was this. Do you remember what it was? The kind of the moody, I can't get no sleep or something like that.
Faithless.
All right. Yeah. Well, you remember that.
Yeah. Other things I remember, there was Rammstein was big.
Yeah.
And Crystal Method. quite different ones.
I'm surprised that he didn't play Judas Priest much because it's Harry's favorite. Yeah. We didn't stop making snowboarding games there, but we got the next one with Infogrames. So that was kind of the continuation. Although Infogrames had bought the Atari as well at the time, and they were having these extreme sports games. So this became like Transworld Snowboarding. Of course, that's kind of a big license. It was Transworld, whatever. They actually made, I think, Transworld Surf and Transworld BMX.
Right.
They had a series of these extreme sports games, and one of them was our Transworld Snowboarding on Xbox, the first one. And this is the first console game ever made by the Finnish studio.
There was also quite a big reveal party, I think, a publishing party for this.
Yeah. We had actually, that's kind of we had actually a great Finnish band called Apulanta there. And they had made, actually this is an interesting story, one of the guys who were designers of that happened to hear English versions of Apulanta. So Apulanta was at the time one of the biggest band in Finland. He got interested, and what it turned out to be that we got a few English Apulanta songs in our Supreme Snowboarding game. So that was kind of maybe a bit of a history. Not that many Finnish songs have been featured in a console game.
Yeah. Where did we go from there? I think PS3 maybe?
PS3, but lots of research, we never got any games out of PS3. We kind of try to do quite a few different things. We did Engage.
Right, yeah.
Engage things.
I think we have...
And then a little bit related to that, yes. I don't know, we did this smaller project, and one of them was project for Gizmondo, which is... you should look it up. It's interesting history. So among other things, we did a motocross game, small little game. And actually, this has been bought from a London flagship Gizmondo store.
All right.
I think they printed about 10 of these, so I suppose, or something. But
collector's edition.
It is quite rare. I think if you look at here, I don't think. Oh, there's a kind of, but I think
you just need the device.
Yeah. Just the device. I think we have it somewhere, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there was all this. We did work for some palm-based. What was that called? Palm-based machine as well. I think we earlier made the game for that, but they went under, and then we need to move to this.
Yeah. There were quite a few different platforms that we actually tried during the early days. I remember there was this Nuon thing that was like a additional chip that went into DVD players, and Jeff Minter was doing some of his Llama games for it.
Right.
Yeah, and we tried to port this one on it. And what else? There was the
arcade machine kind of a thing as well.
The Las Vegas 3D display thing.
Oh yeah, well that was at the beginning. Yes. So interesting. Yeah, we were trying to do some craps. The dice game, dice gambling game. So the idea was that like we can have these devices, and you don't need to have a croupier or whatever.
Right. Oh yeah.
So you could just play and spend money like a casino game. But interesting details there as well. That was early days. So this is already 10 years in the being 2005 in the being studio. So
a funny thing about the dice game. I remember Harry asking from the composer of the music that it could be something like in the movie GoldenEye, and the pastiche was almost exactly like it. It was almost painful to hear. It was so exactly of that thing. Yeah. The other devices, I think, at the same time about as Transworld, or after Supreme at least. There were attempts at GameCube.
Yeah, and actually sequel. Yeah. So the next game was actually we worked on Sega Dreamcast.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah.
So originally, Transworld Snowboarding, or the sequel of Super Snowboarding, should have come to Sega Dreamcast.
Yep.
We all, I think maybe 2000 GDC or something like that. We had a really, really nice tech, and actually Sega guys were like interested in licensing even that. But unfortunately, not that many months later, they kind of quit being a hardware manufacturer, and they quit. And luckily, this was transferred into Xbox, as Atari Infogrames were believing that this is going to be the next big thing. Always a speculation on what would have happened if we would have done a PlayStation 2 game. Yeah. But we got into Xbox first.
PS3 Super Stardust HD, I guess.
After kind of was surviving for a few years and doing, Engage games and like Gizmondo games. We actually at first, the first gig within the Sony was to help Guerrilla to make the PSP game and the Killzone Liberation, right? Yeah. And you actually spent quite a few weeks and months in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I was doing
in 2006.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you do there exactly?
Networking code for the game.
Yeah.
It was a co-op close by devices, I think. Bluetooth or something like that, I think it was.
Yeah. So that was a PSP version, and the other guys like Tommy and Seppo, and I don't know who else.
Aki was there.
Aki was there, okay.
Actually,
that's funny.
I knew Aki was there, but I never met him when he was there. Only after that when he joined Housemarque later.
So future colleague was there working there.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the first gig, and like working on a Guerrilla PSP game, and you spent a few months there finishing that and optimizing that. And after that, actually, we started working on Super Stardust HD. First, among the first digitally downloadable games on PlayStation 3, on PlayStation Network. Yeah. So that was kind of the big thing. And that's quite interesting as well, that like Super Snowboarding, after the deal, it's in less than a year we got the game out. That was actually the same with Super Stardust. So we started working on it in autumn 2006, and the game came out in June 27.
Yeah. Was it the launch game?
It was a launch window game. Of course, I think in Europe, PlayStation 3 was launched in spring 2007. So yes, and we were the first game to have a PlayStation trophies, for instance. So we kind of were in the forefront of some things and many things to come. Yeah. So that was one of the first kind of launch window games we've done on PlayStation platforms.
Yeah. I guess the next ones were on Xbox then.
Yeah, actually, I think that was the first, before Super Stardust HD. I think we were pitching that golf game earlier on Xbox.
Right. Okay. So it had a history.
Golf teed up. Yeah. I think we were discussing about that. And actually, I think we were pitching that before Super Stardust, like in 2006, when these consoles started to have these digital download capabilities. Yes. That you can download directly on your console.
Right. Okay. Now it's coming back to me. Yes.
So actually, the reason we kind of realized that this could be a good opportunity for us was 2006 Geometry Wars on Xbox 360, and as we had done these shoot 'em up games, and it was a really it was a big success, and we thought that hey, this would be a great opportunity for us to do these smaller digitally downloadable games on consoles, and Super Stardust HD was the first one of many we did over the next 10 or so years.
Yeah, the years kind of mix up in my head. Now that you mentioned, we were actually working on it already at the office that we were making Supreme Snowboarding and Transworld, not the next one. But I think the relocation was at that time, I think, to the next office.
Yeah, oh, that's a good one. So, Kalevan Katu already,
Yes,
or Mikon Katu?
I think we worked on golf both on Mikon Katu and Kalevan Katu. So,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And after the Xbox golf game, Harry joined.
Yes.
We were working on Dead Nation and
Outland.
Outland at the same time. No.
I think yes, because Dead Nation came out in 2010,
Yeah.
and actually I think Outland came the next spring.
Right. Super Stardust HD. After that, I think there has been quite a few different versions of it.
Yes, we work on a few, not all of them. So we did a PSP version.
Right. 3D version.
We will, for the 3D monitors as well. One of the first 3D PlayStation games for sure.
Yeah.
We had a launch game on PS Vita as well as another Super Stardust or Stardust Stardust game. And eventually, actually, there were guys who ported Super Stardust Ultra. They added some 3D stuff there, and VR stuff actually.
Yeah.
Like later, but we didn't do that. But that was for PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
So there was quite a few versions.
Yeah.
Let's see when the next one is coming up.
And there's no PS5 version for.
No,
Stardust.
not planned. At least not yet. But yeah, there were many versions, and this is like starts to blur that. Like we did quite a few of these downloadable console games, like starting with Super Stardust HD and eventually the golf game and handheld versions.
Yeah.
There was a Dead Nation,
right.
like a top-down shooter, 2010. Actually, the next spring. Actually, this you were working on this. We have a compilation, a triple back.
Yeah.
Outland, and there's pretty famous game bundled with it, Beyond Good and Evil.
Right.
There's some rumors, has been for the past at least 6-7 years that there will be a sequel coming up. But I've seen a CGI trailer like a few years, 5 years ago, from Dust. So physical, but it was of course downloadable game on PlayStation 4 and Xbox. No, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So digital download game. I got a great response. Like we try to kind of had a bullet hell elements in a platformer. Yeah. And that's sort of a kind of innovation. I think we got from Few Media the best download game of the year. So I think IGN was one of them. So it was kind of a great success. Great. We got lots of great reviews on that as well.
I didn't remember there was a physical copy of it.
Yeah, this is kind of the bundle copy. Yeah.
Are there any games that were strictly downloadable? Well, golf, I think.
Golf?
Yeah.
Of course, PSP version of Super Stardust, PS Vita version. Yeah. They were actually Dead Nation. I think, curiously, Alienation had a Japanese version. Oh. I think it's not here, but like this.
Box.
Oh yeah, there.
Wow.
There you go.
Okay.
So this is already 2016, but not in every region we didn't have a physical copy, but they were digital only.
Yeah.
So this was kind of what we got, and then of course the kind of the last digital download smaller games, 2017. We actually published in the space of 2 months.
Oh.
Yeah. Nex Machina and Matterfall. This was actually our first self-published game, Nex Machina.
Yep.
And we work with our kind of legendary game developer, Eugene Jarvis. Yep. And I think you made a little documentary.
I might have.
Yeah, about this process.
Very recollected.
Yeah, so if you have a chance, the name of the game is the name of the movie. I don't know where you can have it at the moment. Is it available somewhere?
It's very nicely available, at least in the US.
Yeah,
Not in Finland, but in the US.
In the US.
Yeah.
So like most of the download platforms have it.
Yeah.
So the name of the game is telling the story about Nex Machina and our adventures with Eugene.
Yep.
The metaphor again, like platforming shoot 'em up. Maybe it's a right. We try to kind of do another, innovative shoot 'em up as well. So this is kind of I think these are kind of the end of one era, so to speak. So this was one closure of our digital download only games, and we left a good impression. Nex Machina was one of the best reviewed games of 2017, 88 Metacritic. We got some awards, I think at least the Finnish Game Award. Yeah. I don't know, did we got probably not the Nordic Game of the Year. There's so many, so you just don't remember anymore.
Out of all these, I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, this is the culmination of all the efforts, of course, and it was a great game. But of course, in between, actually, we are missing him because I seen this. So of course, I think probably most known game from us before Returnal, Resogun. PlayStation 4 launch title.
Yeah. What is this print, by the way? It doesn't quite look like concept art, but maybe
it is a kind of it is concept art, but I think we have this tower there in there, so we do certainly have that. But
that's surprisingly close to the actual game.
Yeah, but that was of course I think 2014 when PlayStation 4
another launch
title. So I think we had at least 4. So if you count that, if you kind of count that we were very early on with the PlayStation 3 downloadable game with Super Stardust HD, we had a PlayStation Vita game out there. We had a Resogun that's for PlayStation 4. We had a launch title. Returnal launch window title, just on play for PlayStation 5. I don't know. We might be the record holder there. It's not that many studios have done 4 launch window titles on any console. So
most
launchy shows. So there's something, I don't know. Hopefully somebody can fact check me, but at least as far as I know.
Yeah.
And
there we go.
There you go, Returnal. Oh, well, this isn't a game, this is kind of a spin-off.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of do something for the fans. We thought that would be really cool. And have a little comic book. Yeah. And we have a beautiful art book as well. But this was kind of interesting that we started to see that we need to change, maybe there wasn't a big enough audience for these smaller games for us, and one of the things we tried was try to figure out how to make bigger games and what kind of a concept we would have. Yeah. And already in 2015 we had a concept we called Dark Planet at that time, and we started to talk with the publishers and see if there's interest of doing that. So eventually, early 2017, we started a small prototyping team to work on it, and 4 years later, we got the game out. Yeah. So that's kind of a big history. There's a lot of other stuff coming from Returnal, I guess you can find interviews and blog posts and things like that if you're interested further on the history of that. So. But that's, I think that's pretty much where we are. And of course, we have announced a very exciting new game.
Yeah. What about this? Is the stuff that came out in the alternative timeline? What would there be on the table?
What do you mean? Yeah. Alternative timeline.
Yeah. Which ones would be your favorite? Yeah, that didn't get out.
Didn't get out.
Yeah.
Oh, I think most of the ideas had never saw the day of light. I think of course they remember the Trader,
yes.
PlayStation 3 action adventure.
Yeah. There's a playable demo.
And everything. So I think would have been cool. This is 2005.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool to get out, and we especially spent all the money we had to make the big demo and engine and everything. But I guess it was one part that, like, people from PlayStation noticed us that, oh God, these guys can understand the technology, and eventually after Guerrilla gig, PSP gig, we got the chance to start working on a PlayStation 3 game. So maybe it wasn't in vain at all. I don't think so. We gain a lot of experience. But that's I think that's one of the top ones, and I'm sure there are plenty more. But there's a kind of examples of some of the demos we did.
Yeah.
Viper Angels on PSP. Remember that, like motorcycling action game? Yeah. Like Charlie's Angels, but on bikes.
Yeah.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah.
We did a big demo of that as well. So 3 decades later,
what we got?
Yeah, I think we got a lot. We are now working on another exciting game, but I think the biggest achievement is I think for me is that we have allowed our artists and game developers to do all this, and we have had a kind of chance to do our own thing all the time. Be creative in our own little way with given the kind of art constraints, doing smaller games. Oh God! Then of course eventually doing quite a big vision, fulfill a big vision, but being alive, surviving, thriving even. 30 years in this industry, there aren't that many studios that have done that. Especially the first 26 years we were as an independent, going from one game to another.
Exploration.
Yeah, it's been a big exploration route. So for sure, and I think that's kind of the biggest thing that for me, I would feel that sort of facilitated people to do their art. What could have been done differently? I don't know. I kind of are in the camp that what happens, and it can't happen in any other way.
Yeah.
So second guessing. Of course, if we could have gone into doing, let's say, PlayStation games 20 years ago with the Trader, it would have been sold that. My trajectory would have been totally different. Yeah. But then we wouldn't be able to do all this.
Yeah.
So I think it's. I think it's not. I don't feel that there's anything I would change, even though somehow it has been a bit painful at times. Yeah. But I don't know. It has kind of made us who we are.
I'm in the same camp. The only things that I can really think of are really small things. Like maybe a little bit different graphics for the golf game, or the UI for this one could have actually been a little better with this tweak and so on. But the big things are what they are.
Yeah, well, I guess that is kind of always the developer, that that what is missing in the game. Right? So you could have done so much more.
Yeah.
There's so many great ideas.
Of
course, we have. Announced our next game called Saros. Of course, we are pretty excited about that. And I think we kind of are finding our pace, and I think the big challenge for us is how do we innovate the genres and innovate the gameplay. So I think what I'm excited about that there's a chance to have a proper long-term view. Like instead of Saros, just Saros, what's the game after that, and what are the games after that, and try to think about that way, that how do we build our studio to meet those challenges, that how we push ourselves forward, and what is the game in 2035, what is the ultimate Housemarque game back then. So I guess that's currently is the most exciting thing. Yeah.
That's something that we haven't been able to really think of in the past 30 years.
No, it's always been more short term, one game to another, one deal to another. So this is what being part of the PlayStation studios allow us to do. So that is quite exciting. I think most of the people seem to be pretty excited about to think about these things as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we are, in the best position that we've ever been. It feels like that. We are in an amazing new studio office. We have awesome facilities. We have a great team, great expertise. We're in an exciting phase at the moment. Our next game is coming out in 2026. So we are kind of working on that and seeing it develop all the time. So everybody's doing a great job at the moment to make the next great Housemarque game to come true.
Yeah. And a lot bigger than any of these before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right.